London today, one of the world's most advanced cities. But in 2013, meters beneath its gleaming railways, workers struck bone, not one, not 10. Thousands. A mass plague pit from the Black Death of 1348. Over 3,000 bodies hurled in with no coffins, no rites, no names. Still lying exactly as they fell nearly 700 years later. London isn't merely old, built on endless catastrophe. Burned to ashes in the Great Fire, half its people erased by plague. Blitzed, night after night in the darkest hours of war. In this video, cutting-edge AI reconstruction brings those forgotten eras back to life. The blood-soaked streets, plague alleys, execution grounds, as they truly appeared. This is the entire dark history of London. Every disaster, every massacre, every time it stared into the abyss and endured. Before London was London, it was Londinium, a booming Roman trading city on the River Thames. Merchants, soldiers, temples, markets. By the year 60 AD, was one of the most important cities in Roman Britain. Then Boudica arrived. The warrior queen of the Iceni tribe had raised a rebellion against Roman rule. Her army swept across Britain like a wildfire. When they reached Londinium, the Roman governor made a decision. He abandoned the city. Anyone who couldn't escape was left behind. Boudica's army didn't conquer Londinium. They erased it. Roman historian Tacitus wrote that 70,000 people were slaughtered across the rebellion. Men, women, and children. Archaeologists later found the proof. 20 feet below modern London streets is a thick layer of red ash, the remains of the city burned to the ground. And that destruction layer still sits directly beneath the Bank of England. It was London's first catastrophe. It wouldn't be the last. 800 years later, the terror came from the sea. Viking longships began appearing on the River Thames, fast, silent, deadly. In 842 AD, Viking raiders stormed London. The attack was so brutal that the normally calm Anglo-Saxon Chronicle described it with just two chilling words: great slaughter. Homes burned, churches destroyed, people captured and dragged back to Scandinavia as slaves. And it didn't stop there. For nearly 2 centuries, Vikings returned again and again, raiding, burning, occupying parts of the city. London survived barely, but worse was coming. In 1348, ships arrived in England carrying something far more terrifying than an invading army: the Black Death. At first, it seemed like a strange illness. Fever, pain, then black swellings appeared on the body. Within days, the victims were dead. By autumn, the plague had reached London. By spring, half the city was gone. 50% of London's population was dead in less than a year. Graveyards filled first, then churchyards. Soon there was nowhere left to bury the dead, so they dug mass graves. Huge pits. Bodies thrown in by the hundreds, layer after layer. No ceremony, just survival. And in 2013, construction workers building the Crossrail line discovered one of those pits. 3,000 skeletons, still stacked exactly the way they were dumped 670 years earlier. Proof that medieval London wasn't just a city, it was a mass grave. If the plague didn't kill you, the crown might. Rising above the Thames stood one of the most feared buildings in Europe, the Tower of London. For more than 500 years, it served as England's most infamous prison. Traitors were dragged through its gates. Most never came out. Inside the tower, political enemies disappeared. Among them, Anne Boleyn, executed in 1536. Guy Fawkes, tortured after the gunpowder plot. And 2 young boys known as the Princes in the Tower, who vanished mysteriously in 1483. Their skeletons were later discovered buried beneath a staircase. The tower wasn't just a prison, it was a warning. A message from the monarchy to anyone thinking about rebellion. And the ravens that live there today, legend says, if they ever leave, the kingdom will fall. By 1665, London had grown into one of the largest cities in Europe. Then the plague returned. This time, it was even worse. Within months, 100,000 people were dead, nearly 1/4 of the population. Authorities tried desperate measures. When someone inside a house became infected, the entire family was locked inside. A red cross was painted on the door. Under it were the words, "Lord, have mercy upon us." A guard was posted outside. No one could leave. At night, carts rolled through the streets. Workers shouted the most haunting phrase in London's history: "Bring out your dead." Bodies were piled into wagons and dumped into pits. But the city was about to face something even more devastating. It started in a bakery, Pudding Lane, September 2nd, 1666, just after midnight. A spark ignited nearby timber houses, and London at the time was almost entirely made of wood. Within hours, flames were racing through narrow medieval streets. The firestorm grew so intense that it created its own wind. Entire neighborhoods exploded into flames. People fled carrying whatever they could. 4 days later, 80% of the city was gone. 13,200 houses, 87 churches, and St. Paul's Cathedral. Even the birds couldn't escape. Witnesses said pigeons refused to abandon their nests and burned alive in the sky. But strangely, the fire may have saved London, because after 1666, the plague never returned. The flames had wiped it out. By the late 1800s, London had become the capital of the largest empire in history. But beneath the wealth, there was another city, the slums of Whitechapel. Poverty was everywhere. Children worked 16-hour days. Families crammed into single filthy rooms. Sewage ran through the streets. Then in 1888, the murders began. Women found mutilated in dark alleyways. The killer became known as Jack the Ripper. 5 victims, possibly more. The crimes terrified London. Police hunted the killer for months, but he was never caught. And the mystery still haunts the city today. Then came the 20th century, and London faced destruction from the sky. On September 7th, 1940, the first wave appeared. 348 German bombers. They dropped explosives across the city. Factories, homes, schools, hospitals. That night was only the beginning. For the next 57 consecutive nights, the bombing never stopped. London burned again. 30,000 people were killed. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble. But every night, millions of Londoners descended underground, into the subway tunnels, sleeping on platforms while bombs fell above them. And somehow, the city endured. London has been destroyed more times than almost any city on Earth. Burned, plagued, invaded, bombed, and rebuilt every single time. Today, 9 million people walk its streets, often without realizing what lies beneath them. Ash from ancient fires, bones from medieval plague pits, and the ruins of a city that refused to die. That's not just survival, it's defiance. If you want to see the dark history of another famous city, subscribe, because the next story might be even darker.